a lot of people that come to us and want to help with growing their business, the classic thing we always say to a service business is productize. And the classic thing we say to a product business is add some services. And if you look at this from the outside, it sounds like we don't know what we're doing. But the reality is it's the case of you can add more revenue for doing what you're doing anyway. And in the case of moving from service towards product, you can basically deal with more volume of whatever you're doing anyway, and without having more staff, without doing anything else. But it's a different way of thinking. Do you feel as a consequence that the business today compared to 6 months ago is a stronger business?
Yeah, it's a case of eggs in more baskets. So part of our existing business means that we have billion-dollar companies that are clients of ours, and it means that our business can often be chunky, right? And what I mean by that is you can win $1 million contract and everyone's happy. You lose that and you feel it, right? Like it's not like you lose a $1,000 a month contract. It's very different. So in order to sort of balance that out and be able to manage resources off the back of that and all of those kind of things, the whole idea was, well, let's see what eggs in many baskets does, and smaller margin, higher volume, and it works.
Yeah,
it just has to be productized as well, right? Because when you're talking smaller margins, you need to use systems, automation, and take a bunch of work off expensive staff resources in order to be able to make it profitable, and that's what we're working on doing continually.
One of the things that I think is unique about your business compared to many other business-to-business service provision businesses is that, as we touched upon it a couple of minutes ago, is that you, for a number of years, have had a distributed business model. You've got your service teams, you've got the people that are actually doing the operational side of the business. They're all over the world, and they're not coming to the office every day. So I guess there's a lot of businesses for whom that's a new idea, that's a new proposition. So given that you're almost like a veteran in that kind of game, are there some unique things that we may not have thought about that you can share with us, that you're going, hey, this is from someone that's been doing it a couple of years, what's the learnings from that?
I remember a lot of growing pains in the early days. So we started doing it in 2008, 2008, where we were trying to work with these big companies, and we were working with some of them, and we were losing some of our pitches to companies that didn't have a distributed team, and it was harder to sort of push that culture and that understanding that it doesn't matter where we are, we can get the work done better. That was harder back then. Now it's almost normal. Like we speak to these billion-dollar companies, and our point of contact might be in the middle of New York, and they're talking to the San Francisco office, and no one cares where anyone is. But one of the challenges earlier on was that we went straight to India initially, and we were just looking for assistance just to help with anything. And what we found there was that we'd go through things in detail. They'd say, yes sir, I understand, yes sir, no problem, it would be delivered, and it'd get delivered, and it was just 5% of what you thought was going to happen. And it was horrible. And that you've got all these thoughts like, what am I doing? Why am I paying this person? Maybe I've gone to the wrong country, the wrong culture, all of this. The reality is that you've got to look at yourself first and say, how could I have made this foolproof? Like, think about McDonald's, right? They've got their processes and systems nailed so that they can hire people with zero experience in order to still produce the exact same quality of product. And we needed to look at that. And so we looked internally and thought, how do we brief people properly? How do we do check-ins? So we were doing video recordings then of going through different tasks. We'd write standard problems and answers. We'd do check-ins the minute that they started, an hour into it, all that kind of thing. That really fixed things, but it also didn't eliminate everything. And what I mean by that was that there were also cultural differences that we couldn't just eliminate with those kind of processes and SOPs. It was more that India was very agreeable. I'm generalizing here. India was very agreeable. And then we went to the Philippines, and the Philippines communicated really well. But one of the cultural things that happened there is that we we'd hire people, we'd give them a task, we'd go through all our normal SOPs, and if it was due the next day or whenever it was due, sometimes we wouldn't ever hear from the person again. There was no email response, no Skype, no phone, nothing. They'd disappear off the face of the earth. And we'd be sitting there baffled thinking, what on earth did we do? And it wasn't until we found someone who, her name was Val, and she had worked for Western companies in the past, and she understood both cultures, and she was brilliant. She started as an assistant, and then when we started saying to her, why are these people disappearing? She said culturally, if they couldn't do the task, they were ashamed or whatever it was, they didn't want to have to front up to that. So they would rather just move on. And that was sort of mind-blowing for me. It was just completely different to whatever I was expecting. So we ended up putting, a lesson from that was that we needed people who understood the cultures to manage the people. So we ended up having Val managing all of the Philippines, and that took the problem away completely because they could stay on the same level as to what was going on. She could communicate back. And then we started doing that for every country, Eastern Europe and Australia and the US, and that really changed things for us.
So what I'm actually hearing is it's not so much about the gizmos or the software and the time of the stand-up or whatever not. It's actually getting really into the culture of the country that you are sourcing your teams in. And once you get that right, everything moves along.
That's a big part of it. Internal SOPs, proper structure, and understanding cultural impacts that I didn't think would be an impact at all when I was starting.
How do you, as a person, manage to extract yourself out of the business and trust that this thing just happens and works?
So I think that again comes down to processes, right? Like one thing I've found, there's many benefits to having big business and billion-dollar clients and all that kind of thing. There's a lot of big benefits. They pay a lot compared to small business. They're running multi-channel marketing, so they understand synergies and impacts, and everything helps each other. There's many different things. But one of the hard bits is that if they come to your company, they come to my company because of my personal brand or seeing content that I've created somewhere, they often want to work with me or make sure that I'm involving myself in certain phone calls or consulting with the internal team on things. You can't always replace yourself. I mean, you can eventually. I haven't been able to fully do that. With going into the SME side of things, the goal was to do that from the very beginning, have it so that I was removed from the very beginning and the processes and everything else handled that. I should be able to successfully do that. I'm still struggling on the larger side of things to get there.
Don't worry, it's a problem we'll have.
Yeah, having a good team in place that you trust is huge. And in our sort of medium to enterprise side of the business, having the front of house people, I pay a lot of money for, and they're our stars. They need to be different from a standard agency model. Like standard agency model will have a low level account manager that has 90 to 100 accounts, and they have a tech guy working with them, and they're meant to make all these people happy and simply be the glue back and forth while the tech person makes everything happen with the team. We have a different setup where our front of house people are able and capable of doing the whole end-to-end process. Not that they do, but they need to fully understand everything, be able to consult on the spot, and be able to send the right information back to the team, which the team is everywhere and working on different time zones. So we overinvest in our front of house people, and I think that's a huge difference.
The sector difference is that we've always, it's not always, but certainly had for the last 50, 60, 70 years, those sector boundaries are not meaningful anymore. Like we have a sector of tourism, we have a sector of retail, we have a sector of hospitality. Well, when I can tell you that there's hospitality business that we know that literally have turned the key and closed, and there are hospitality that we're managing that are double their revenue in a month, you're going, well, hang on a bit, they're both in hospitality. How is this even possible? Well, it is possible because old business model dies, new business model lives, albeit within the same sector. Yeah. And so the big structural change, and this was happening, prior to any outbreak of anything prior to the economic crisis we had to have anyway. But there's a shift towards looking at the business model. Indeed, we as a business, as an organization, we are betting everything on the fact that the future is the decade, probably several decades of the business model. You know, if you think back, if I sort of take a banter on, what's been good to invest in the last 25 years, tech. It's pretty much, doesn't matter what we're looking at, any kind of good tech, good business that has a lot of tech is probably a good investment. And it was predicated on the fact that, if you will, the cost of entry into running a good tech business was really, really high. It was actually quite expensive. Now the cost of entry, and you would know that you probably build a number of internal systems to help run your own business. Now you can actually do that really, really cheaply. And so the cost of entry for a new company to go into the tech business is like right down. So therefore, everyone's now competing with everybody else. There's a kid from the Philippines, another kid from India, another kid from China, competing with the 7 kids from America, and they all think, we're going to be running the world. It just doesn't work like that anymore. So the key differentiating factor is the actual business model with which they run the business. That's not to say that tech is not important, but the tech is a bit like, well, that's just the ticket to get into the stadium. That doesn't make you win the match. That was just...
It's exactly what we've been saying internally. It's not it's the recipe and not the ingredients, because now everyone has the ingredients. It's more about what you do with it that makes a difference.
Everyone, if they're willing to spend money with an agency like yours, they can get the SEO, the SEM, the optimization, the organic, the non-organic, the fertilized, the whatever not. They can have every kind of traffic they want. They can have every kind of marketing on every kind of channel.
Yeah.
Okay. So how am I different from this other guy? Well, the reality is I'm not. There are really only 2 things, and there is another thing that comes in addition to the business model, and the other one is purpose. Because the consumers out there would rather, if they have a choice and rough price parity, buy whatever they're buying from a company with which they can align with the purpose of the company. That's not to say that they necessarily live the purpose of that company, but it means that, I like the way they're doing things. I like the way they think. I like the way their advertising speaks, whatever it might be.
I see exactly the same things. And I mean, it's even, unfortunately, it's one of those things as well, where some businesses will say, look, we'll just donate $1 of every whatever subscription, whatever it is, to some sort of charity in order to try and invoke that similar purpose or whatever it is. But when it's authentic through the story and the narrative of the business and everything they live and breathe, that's a whole lot different. I can see why that'd be impactful.
Yeah, and obviously that purpose is going to work with our business model, and they're going to support each other, because if they don't, again, it's not really one business. It's like, we've got this purpose, but we're doing it this other way, and they don't really connect to each other. People are going to go, I'm confused. This is weird.
Yeah.
I like to align with your purpose, but I can't buy from you in the way that I want to buy. Well, that is, I'm sorry, but I'm back into my folded arms. You go, I'm not really sure about that. And so, when I see we actually got a client coming in about half an hour, starting a new client, and it's very much about, well, what is the purpose and what is the business model?